All right, today we are diving into the absolutely dramatic finale of the Apostle Paul's first missionary journey. But this isn't just about the end of a trip. It's a powerful story of unbelievable resilience, brilliant strategy, and a triumphant return that literally changed the future of the early church. So let's set the scene. The story kicks off at what seems like rock bottom. Paul has just been dragged out of the city of Lystra, where a furious mob has stoned him. They just walk away, leaving him for dead. I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is the end of the line. But then, something incredible happens. As the brand new believers, the disciples, are gathered around what they think is his body, he gets up. He doesn't just groan and stir, he stands up and walks right back into the very city that just tried to kill him. This is nothing short of supernatural resilience, and believe me, it sets the tone for everything that's about to happen. I mean, this first part of the story is just mind-blowing, right? Paul defies death itself, not to run and hide, but to double down on the mission. Just think about the choice he has here for a second. The normal, logical, sane thing to do after being stoned with an inch of your life is to retreat. You focus on survival, right? But Paul and Barnabas, they do the complete opposite. They advance. The very next day, they're on the road to a new city, Derbe, and they start preaching all over again, winning over a whole bunch of new disciples. Their commitment was just absolutely unbreakable. This near-death experience, it really marks a pivot point in their whole journey. The focus is about to shift from, just breaking new ground to actually building a lasting foundation. And this is where we get a kind of blueprint for how to build strong, resilient churches. See, instead of just making a beeline for home, they decide to retrace their steps. They go back into the very cities where people had just tried to kill them. Now, this wasn't them being reckless. It was a deliberate strategy. They knew that for this new faith to actually survive and take root, these new believers had to be strengthened and prepared for the challenges that were definitely coming their way. So what did they do? Well, they had this amazing three-part pastoral plan. First, they strengthened the souls of the believers, grounding them in solid teaching. Second, they encouraged them, cheering them on to keep going and hold on to their faith. And third, and this is so important, they got real with them about the hardships they would face. This right here was the core of their message about suffering. They didn't sugarcoat it. They didn't promise an easy life. They taught that hardship, that tribulation, wasn't a sign that something had gone wrong. It wasn't a sign of failure. It was actually an expected and even necessary part of the journey into God's kingdom. But that raises a question, right? How do you make sure all this good work continues after you're gone? Well, the answer is local leadership. They appointed elders. These were mature, local believers from right there in the community to pastor and guide the church. This was absolutely key to creating a movement that could sustain itself and grow on its own. And let me tell you, this was not a casual process. It wasn't just a pat on the back. In every single one of these new churches, they appointed these leaders through serious prayer and fasting, really seeking God's wisdom. And only then did they formally entrust these new shepherds to the Lord's care. This was all about building a structure that was meant to last. Okay, so now we get to the climax of the entire journey, the triumphant return and the incredible report they give to their home church back in Antioch. Their trip back was so thorough. They literally, systematically retraced their path through every region, strengthening all the churches, and they even stopped to preach again in Perga before finally grabbing a ship to sail home. The moment they get back, what's the first thing they do? They gather the church, the very people who sent them out in the first place. This is such a powerful moment. It's about accountability, it's about partnership, and it's definitely about celebration. You've got the missionaries from the field reporting back to the community that supported them. Now you have to pay close attention to the language they use. Their report isn't, "Look how brave we were," or "Check out our brilliant strategies." No, they frame the entire story around what God had done with them. It's this beautiful posture of humility that gives all the credit, all the glory to God's power. And here it is. This is the punchline of the whole mission. The single biggest piece of news they have to share is that God himself had opened a door of faith to the Gentiles, to the non-Jews. This was completely groundbreaking. It was this divine confirmation that the good news really was for everyone. What a triumphant way to cap off such an incredibly difficult journey. Okay, so that's the story. But what does this ancient account really mean for you and me today?
Let's break down the takeaways.
The thing is, this isn't just a history lesson. It's a timeless blueprint. It gives us a real model for how to care for each other, how to face tough times with resilience, and how we can work together in partnership to achieve a mission that's bigger than any one of us. And this story, it really forces us to ask a tough, personal question. We all have our own lystras, don't we? Those places of failure, of opposition, or just deep discouragement. The real question is, after we've been knocked down, are we going to retreat? Or are we going to get back up and re-engage with our mission? So in the end, this journey leaves us with a really practical, actionable game plan. We can systematically strengthen and encourage the people around us. We can be honest about hardship and actually prepare people for it. We can prayerfully look for and empower new leaders. And we have to report back, share the wins, no matter how big or small, to inspire our entire community. Because this is the blueprint for a mission that doesn't just survive, it absolutely thrives.